Hi there, bon dia, Eva Corja, Foilsharov Galerkik on Coro Show. Welcome everybody to this Fireside Chat. This is our 31st. So just type in your name and let me know where you're from. Hi, Cindy from Virginia, lovely to see you. Julia from London, brilliant. Lisa from Washington, that's great. My guest disappeared for a while, but she's back, thank goodness. So we'll meet her. Hi, Pat from Ulster, and Tolv from Hertfordshire, Dean from Sussex, and from France, Wisconsin, lovely. Linda from Maryland, that's wonderful. Oklahoma, brilliant, that's Justin. Pauline from Lancashire, lovely. Hi, Tara. And New York, and snowy New York, and I'm so pleased to say it's been sunny. I've had a blue sky all day in Ireland. That's news, by the way. And hi, Tanis from Canada, and Poppy again. Welcome back from Stratford-on-Avon. Wonderful. So, okay. Hi, Sandra. You've just joined it from New Brunswick in Canada. You've just joined OBOD. You're very, very welcome. Hi, Stefan. John from Ardnamurchan. That's obviously Scotland, someplace. Hi, Sherry in New York. It's wonderful. Okay, well, it's just lovely to be here again with you. And I would like to introduce this evening's guest. This is Susie NicNeill, all the way from Skye. Those of you who are members and on the Bardic course Susie it's her voice that you hear doing the Gaelic. So, and it's Happy Earth Day. And yes, I'll talk a bit about what I did for Earth Day today. Susie, you are so welcome.
It's great. It's lovely to see other people because I am quite isolated here. Maybe not as isolated as John and Ardnamurchan, but I'm still, I don't see people. I saw some today on my course for the first time in ages. But it's sunny here today. We're just happy it's not wet.
It's snowy in New York. This is amazing. Where's Ardnamurchan? How far away is that?
From here, if I go over to Malig, I can then go down through the peninsula onto Ardnamurchan or down round by Fort William. I've got friends on Ardnamurchan, so I do go down there occasionally when I can drive.
Okay, so you are living on the Isle of Skye, and anyone people know the song, but are you from there?
No, I used to live on the Isle of Lewis.
Okay.
And my younger life was there, and I came over to Skye and stayed with an auntie when I was about 17. And then I went away to college and all that sort of stuff, back to Lewis. And then I came back here in 1988, I think it was, to work for Abu Teli, a Gaelic television company. And which was great because it also got me working with an Irish television company in Spittal in Galway. And I spent my time going back and forth from Skye to Spittal, and they came from Spittal to Skye. And it was great.
That's wonderful. Spittal is in Galway, the beginning of Connemara. And there are a lot of people asking whereabouts is Skye. And then there are other people saying they love Skye. So just for those who don't know where it is, where is it?
Well, if you're looking at a map of Scotland and you look on the left side, the left-hand side, you'll see the Outer Hebridean archipelago going down the left. And on the inside, there's an island that's shaped like a wing, and that's the Isle of Skye. It's quite a big island. It's about 70 miles north to south. But it's got about 10,000 people on it now, I reckon.
Oh, that's a good population.
Yeah, but it's difficult keeping the younger population. So, which is why I didn't mind when my neighbour's son Hector put an industrial unit next to my next to my fence. I thought I'll deal with the industrial unit as long as there's a young person doing something.
Working there. Wonderful, wonderful. The price we pay to keep young people here. That's wonderful. So you're on an island. So can you describe it for me?
It's quite mountainous. Where I am, right on the sea, and the hills go further back, and I'm looking onto the mountains of Ben Skryl and Knoydart on the mainland. So I'm looking straight out onto the mainland from here. But compared to Lewis, when I first came down here, I cried for a year and a half because all these trees and mountains were just getting in the way of the view, as far as I was concerned. But the south end of the island were quite green. I've got a lot of trees in my garden. I've got my alder, which is my telephone tree, and I've got hazel and birch and ash and aspen all the way along and round, and a lovely Scots pine that I planted myself years and years ago. And when I left the television company, I dug it up and brought it here. And it's now about 40 feet high and a bit too close to the house, but it's staying where it is, you know. So there's a lot of trees, a lot of greenery, because we get a lot of wet. And as you go further up the island, it's very mountainous, very lots of Munros. And then beyond that, it's more like the Outer Hebrides. It's flatter. It has less. There are no trees.
I'm pleased to hear you, because I often associate, you're beside the sea, and it's so hard for trees to grow. Often, it depends. So it's lovely that you have so many trees being beside the sea.
I have 2 apple trees, and I think it was more than 5 years ago because I was still teaching, and I hadn't been very well, and I got some mistletoe, and I'm growing mistletoe 3 yards from the sea. I've got huge balls of it now on my 2 apple trees. I borrowed 3 from Chalice Well Garden, just 3 little berries one year, and they're just growing so well. And this is the furthest north that I've known mistletoe to grow, and so close to the sea. It's amazing.
I have mistletoe envy, serious mistletoe envy. It doesn't grow. It's not naturalized in Ireland. I think there might be 1 or 2 spots in special gardens. I've tried. So I'm very envious the fact that you can do it on an island.
But 1 berry this year.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. But that I love you borrowing 3 berries from Chalice Well, and you managed to do it from there. Wow.
And it started to naturalize.
You have a magical touch, Susie. If you're able to grow all those trees right beside the sea, you obviously have a gift.
They get a lot of Reiki. I have to say, they get a lot of Reiki and a lot of hugs.
Oh, wonderful.
I do talk to them all.
So John King, he's in Ardnamurchan, and he says it's heavily wooded, oak, birch and alder predominantly. That's wonderful. And there are other people here commenting on your voice. The way Susie reads is so harmonious. I easily focus on the gorse. And there've been a number of comments going up, beautiful voice. I love her voice. So, and you have, and of course, people loving your accent because I think it's a beautiful accent.
Oh, so, that's lovely. That's so good to hear, because Philip told me I did it too quickly.
Just hear slowly.
And then when I was reading the last thing for the Chosen Chiefs exchange, he said you did it very quickly. The Guernsey were very quick. So I started to read it very deliberately. I sent it back. Oh, for God's sake.
Oh, I love it. I love it. You have the kind of accent that no matter what you say, I'll believe you. There's a certain Scottish accent and also certain, it must be Donegal, that not all Donegal accents, but whatever the person says, I believe them. It's just very convincing. And yours is one such.
Donegal, of course, is very close. And it's one of the few accents that it's easier for Scottish Gaelic people to understand Donegal Irish.
Yes.
And Donegal, especially Gweedore and Glasgow, have a very, very close association. You know, the Govan to Gweedore.
Oh, wonderful.
And there's a bus goes from Glasgow with Gweedore on the front.
Go away.
And it goes and gets the ferry. And it's only about £10 to go all that way.
Oh, wow. Oh, that's absolutely wonderful.
Yeah.
Lovely connections. And today is Earth Day. And I just need to say, because we were just talking about it earlier, I got a solar oven a few days ago. And I made 2 cakes today. Put my solar oven on the earth and the sun in Ireland. A great miracle. There was enough sun. I started at 4:30 this afternoon and took the second cake out at 7:30. I can't believe it. So what a wonderful way of celebrating Earth Day. And I'm sorry, I'm very, very excited with my new toy because I love the idea of camping and being fairly fuel independent. I mean, I still have a gas cooker, but to be able to bake in a solar oven and to have done it really efficiently, it's wonderful. And in Ireland. So,
yes, it would have worked today here in Skye. It was quite hot for April, you know.
Yeah.
Quite warm.
So, what brought you to the order? What brought you to Druidry, Susie?
I had been searching. I was brought up a Catholic, but my father was free church and married my mother a Catholic, and so it became that was quite an unpleasant situation for both of them at one point. But I was dissatisfied with all of it, and I ran away when I was 15 and joined the Radha Krishna temple.
Okay.
I think because I liked the saris, you know. But anyway, I didn't stay very long with that. And I started reading all sorts of different religious texts and books on Zen Buddhism and things like that when I was quite young. And I started, and I knew that my Celtic background made me, because I was also reading the Toynbee Colling, and I was reading all of the myths and legends, and I felt more closely drawn to them. I kept saying, you know, I'm closer to them than a guy in Palestine wearing sandals. This was young to my mother, and eventually I found Philip's book, The Druid Way.
Yeah.
And I read that and I thought, oh, this is it. I found it. I know what I'm doing now. And I phoned up very tentatively and said, would it be all right if I joined? I mean, this must be, there was only about 150 members at the time.
Yeah.
So we're going back 28 years. The order really was quite new.
Mm-hmm.
And I joined and I went through the Bardic Versi, and that was me. I was just caught. and I loved it. And I was working in telly at the time, and it was very, very stressful, very stressful. Good fun, but horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anybody, really. But then I said that about all my jobs except art. So I kept on with that and worked. Then I went to Iona on a retreat with the order, and I met two women who have since then been my very, very best friends. One is in Maryland now, and one is in Austria. And we get together like this once a month,
Wonderful.
And that kept us all going within it, and we were all isolated in that we were solitary practitioners.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of like being a solitary practitioner for myself because I'm not very good in crowds.
Mm-hmm.
And three people's a crowd. But if I know them, it's okay.
Yeah.
And there are not enough people here. There was one other girl, a woman who used to live in Broadford, who was in the order, but she moved away. And I'm quite happy practicing on my own, celebrating on my own, and accessing the spirit on my own. But I was telling you before, 2 years ago at this time of year, I was in Brisbane and I had emailed the Macadamia Grove and asked if I could go out with them. And I had the most wonderful time. They were lovely people. It was so atmospheric. They were celebrating Samhain in May, of course. And we just had a lovely time. And it was joyful.
Wonderful.
It was wonderful. So I am probably missing out on being within a grove. And I kind of understand what I'm missing. But tough. There's only me and the two cats.
It's interesting because I suppose the majority of members of the order are solitary, and I've become to really, I joined because I wanted to be a solitary druid because I don't like groups, and look at me now, the biggest liar in the world. But anyway, but when I started going to Glastonbury to the gatherings, it's like, what was I missing? And I never stopped going, and until this pandemic. But it's really interesting how useful these online, either the ceremonies or the chats or Philip's teas are for people who are isolated and who actually are happy enough to be on their own, but that there is some kind of connection. And I think that's beautiful. But I've never been to Australia. I've been to New Zealand. So hopefully.
I could never go to the Glastonbury gatherings because they always fell within the Scottish school year. And when I left television, I trained as a teacher and as a Gaelic teacher, as it happened, and it always fell within the school year. So now that I'm retired, I'm hoping to do a little bit of traveling. Take mistletoe berries back to the Chalice Well.
Oh, wonderful! Of course, yeah. We were to have done a workshop together with Chris, last June. But who knows? Hopefully, it may happen again. Somebody says Tina Teaspoon. That's a great name, Tina Teaspoon. We're still together even when we aren't. I think that's wonderful about these connections. And you have your two friends being so far away, being able to connect online. I think it's absolutely beautiful. And I must.
sorry, I connect with them in other ways as well, you know, again through Reiki and through, if we do separate individual ceremonies, and we're always emailing, you know,
Yeah.
happy Alban this and Alban that, you know, one way or another. We're always there for each other, even although we're not in the one grove. So yeah, Tina Teaspoon's very correct in what she says.
It's beautiful. And I just want to mention the Isle of Skye is where Sophia Carcom, Philip and Stephanie's daughter, who's a filmmaker, and she won an award for it. And it was filmed, you named the title of the film, and The Wider Sun, in that room where you're sitting.
House. They
In your
took
house.
over the house, and I went to Uist for a week and stayed with my friend. I said, "It's all yours. You can sleep here. Just feed the cats. That's all I ask." And it was cleaner when I came back than when I left it. It was sparkling. And I was left about half a ton of yellow lentils as well. But they filmed, and I, you know, managed to get them other places, you know, permissions and so on. And it was a very traditional story, but
Yeah.
she had written it from the point of view of a young girl whose parents had split up, and the mother came back to stay with her mother in Skye. This was her mother's home. And she met a little boy who turned out to be a part of the Seal folk.
Yeah.
And you know, because the Seal folk, the Selkies, in
Yes.
our tradition, it's a very, very strong story, and it's one that comes up again and again in different formats. But this was a lovely little 15-minute short film.
Beautiful.
And I was invited to the premiere in BAFTA or whatever it was, BFI. Oh, I was so chuffed.
Wonderful. It's, if anyone can see it, it's an absolutely beautiful. I've seen it a few times actually, and each time I've just been so moved by it. And we have the Selkie story in Ireland as well. And with Sophia, it's a very unique one because it's the little boy who's the Selkie.
Yes.
It moves away from the traditional story of the mother being the Selkie.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. But the scenery and the place where the Wider Sun, it's called, Kayla. The Wider Sun. But just the scenery was just beautiful in Skye, and I thought, oh, I want to go. Anyway, it's on my list. I'll get there sometime.
Oh, you will. You will. It is beautiful. There's no denying it. And once the COVID restrictions are lifted, that's when it gets gridlocked with tourists. Yes. So just be careful which time you decide to come.
Season. Okay. I'm just putting that. Somebody's asked me again, the Wider Sun. Yeah, of course, this is always the thing, is like to go when you can, and then try to be there when it's quiet. It's that, you know, everybody's there at its best.
If it's quiet, it's raining.
Just like home. So you're an artist, you're a poet. Where do you get your Awan or your Imas from? In Gaelic, do you have in Irish it's Imas? Imas.
Yeah.
Do you have do you use that word, or do you have your own Gaelic word?
Impas. Impas would be. It's the same. It's
the same word.
The P. It's the same word. It's the same word. I recently I've been getting. I don't do landscapes because I live in the most beautiful landscape. I can't do it justice. Other people try to do it justice. Some of them do, but I'd rather just look at the landscape myself. So I was doing things like quite a big painting. and I used Richard Dawkins, you know, The God Delusion.
Yes.
And I'd been reading that, and what I did, I called it A Wee Man Reads Richard Dawkins. And it was this wee man, and he was very foreshortened, reading a book. And this huge white-tailed seagull came in with his claws down. And you didn't know if he was going to just pick up the wee man reading Richard Dawkins. And it's things like that that are my illness, I suppose. They're all quite abstracty. I've got one that I've just finished that's called Take Me to Brisbane, and it's very abstract, you know. And because my brother lives there as well, and all his family, and I've got a nephew there. Oh, I love Brisbane. And anyway, you know, I was sort of, I'm slightly obsessed by keys. And when I started keys and locks, and up at the hub, there's a big wall hanging with a Gaelic haiku on it that I had written as well. And I had rust printed and keys everywhere, and it looked like a prison and hands trying to get out of the prison. And I crochet videotape.
Oh my goodness.
Here's a muckluck that I crocheted in videotape. It was for a painting. It's a little boot, a Native American boot.
Oh my goodness.
But it was too big for the painting. But it's made from videotape. And I do a lot of stuff with videotape because I'd rather I made Happy Earth Day shopping bags and bowls and what have you, then it goes into earth fill.
Absolutely, landfill. I'm just so impressed. It's like when I think of all the stuff I've had to get rid of, and I thought, oh, I could have knit them. It's just such a pity. There's a question here from Sean Hinchliffe. Actually, I saw it earlier. He's learning Gaelic, and I can understand when I read Gaelic. I can understand it, but I maybe hear it, but obviously I wouldn't be able to repeat it. He's learning it. But what do you think of Donny Munro's Old Man of Store mural in Portree?
I have no idea. I don't go to Portree. It's about 50 miles away, and okay. I only go in emergencies, or if I'm going through to Uig. So I haven't seen it. But Donny went to art school, so I'm assuming it'll be great.
Did you go to art school?
I'm at art school just now. I went to drama school.
Okay.
Because it's far too long a story for here. I did have a portfolio for art school, which ended up in the school's burner thing. You know, the thing that we heat the water with. And that was my portfolio. That was the end of that. I had done quite imaginative things to a statue of Our Lady, using a flake packet and a nimble bag on her head. And that was it. I was just expelled from school.
I think that probably went down very well. Yes. Okay.
It went very well. And I believe that things, you know, that was meant to be. I went to drama school. I've never been very good at focusing on one thing for very long. And so there was drama school. I went to the BBC to work as a makeup artist because I wanted to work in art, and it seemed like a good thing. And then I moved to become a camera assistant, then a cameraman, then an editor, then a producer, because I just don't have the ability to focus long enough. But I love learning.
I see. You're a polymath.
Yes, but a polymath usually means that you're very good at everything. No, I can do everything. I'm just not very good at it. And so, you know, when I finally left Abu Teli and doing that, oh, I was so happy. I then retrained as a teacher. And I felt that that was the right way to go for me within my Druid grade, because I had, by that time, it took me ages. I went back, you know, when I finished the Ovate grade, I went back to the Bardic grade and went through the Guernsey again, you know. And then when I was doing my Druid grade, I thought teaching is what I'm meant to be doing now.
Okay.
And I did, and I started off and I was quite a good teacher. At least the kids thought I was very funny.
Well,
I don't know if they learned anything.
Were you primary and second level?
I had, at one stage, I had primary 1 to 7. That's 5 years old to 11 years old, all in the one classroom, all at the one time, with no support.
That's polymath teaching, I'm telling you. I'm just...
I'll tell you what I did do, though, because one of my favourite subjects was RME, Religious and Moral Education.
Okay.
And I loved teaching. We had to teach Sikhism, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity, and one other. I can't remember. But they got one other as well, because every quarter day they were celebrating Imbolc, they were celebrating Samhain, but the right Samhain, because they wanted to trick or treat, and I said, we don't do that here. We do not do that here. And they had Bealtaine, Imbolc, Bealtaine, Lunasa, and Samhain, and then we would go out on, you know, the equinox and the Grianstans as well, just to stand outside.
Wonderful.
So they got all of that.
So that was a really broad religious education. Gabriella here says, maybe you have an INFJ profile. Now, is that... what do you call it? The Myers-Briggs, because they say they're interested in several things and find it difficult to choose one. That was just because you're saying you have so many.
I love to do lots of things. I really would like to be obsessive about one thing, because I think if you're obsessive about one thing, you become really good at it. You're able to give it and practice and do all the things that you need to do. I'm getting that now with my art. And now that I've discovered lino printing, I know what I was made to do in this world, lino cutting. And so, you know, I do that. I continue with my poetry. I use my poetry and art together quite a lot.
Polymath. I'm just going to cut across you, because you said polymaths are excellent at everything. They're not. That polymaths are very successful people because they have a broad interest. I was reading an article and somebody gave the example of Dilbert, the cartoonist, who wasn't a great writer and wasn't a great artist, but he combined both to become a famous cartoonist. You have just said, you know, you're combining your art and your poetry, and it's that synthesis that's really, really important. So, I mean, when you think of a specialist, I was just thinking that the other day, you know, when you look at, you say in medicine, often you have a specialist, and I won't talk to another specialist, and you may have a lot of things wrong with your different systems. And sometimes I think specialisms are praised above polymaths. And I think, well, that's a one-trick pony. But when you think of somebody who has an interest in all sorts of things and can bring these together, just like you say, poetry and your art, that's magic. Now there's alchemy for you. You're getting there.
Yes, I think you're right. I think you're right. I think it's because I've always seen myself more as a butterfly, just going from one thing, you know, there was me. I never became a very good makeup artist because I had nipped off to become, at one point, this is a true story, Doctor Who with Tom Baker. Most people, even in America, will probably have seen it. I worked on that, right, as a camera assistant. However, it was only when they found my name down on the shooting script, I was down as makeup assistant and camera assistant. And they said, she can't be both. And I'd been going in my own time to work as a camera assistant. And they just assumed that that's who I was. I was a camera assistant and put my name down. Oh, there was hell to pay.
Oh, it's wonderful.
You know, I couldn't do one thing for doing the other. And that's what I feel, that I'm never getting to the stage of doing one thing properly and correctly before my mind goes on to something else. And I want to learn something new. And it's the process of learning, I think, that I really love. And I mean, during the COVID lockdown, I did so many different courses. I loved it. Knocked me down for another year, you know. It was great. So I do think it's the process of learning that kind of makes me move away from things quicker than I really should.
Well, it's an interesting one because it's like putting all these different things into a cauldron, and who knows what's going to come out yet.
Yes.
And that's an interesting one because that's not ready to who knows.
Who knows?
You're getting lots of positive comments in the people are kind of, I think, identifying with you. So you have a few allies here. You're not alone. And I'm no specialist. And somebody says maybe she's modest and is better than she thinks. I think, Poppy, you're probably correct. So
I like to think that I'm a realist, and you know, I've published poetry. I've had exhibitions. I won't expect me to. I won't get rich doing it. That's for sure.
No.
But,
I don't know how many people do it. Yeah, I don't know how many poets are wealthy. Artists might be a little bit more wealthy, or usually after they've gone.
I've got a friend next door who's an artist, and she's really, really quite well off.
Oh, very good.
But she does these landscapes that are quite lovely. They are, you know, she is a fantastic artist. And, you know, Princess Anne has some of her work, and Madonna has one of her paintings, but they're all landscapes. And I keep saying to her, do something else, you know, and she's just producing all these landscapes on a commercial basis. And my friend on the other side, he's a poet, Roddy Gorman, and he writes in Irish and Scots Gaelic and English, and he's got loads and loads and loads of books out, and he'll never ever be rich.
Yeah,
because it's just not possible. It's lucky to be published in poetry. I mean, my first book was published by Scottish Cultural Press, and they insisted on producing 4 books of poetry every year from 4 different poets. and they went under because you cannot sell that amount of poetry in a limited market. And I remember when they went under, the whatever you call them, the people that look after the assets, try and get rid of the assets, were going to pulp. They had a warehouse full of poetry books that they were going to pulp. And they said, you can have yours if you pay for the delivery. And I said, yeah, sure, you know. And I made more money selling them at fairs and at
wonderful.
you know, just $5 a time. And I thought, that's great. They're all gone now. And the other day I was painting the upstairs bedroom, and I was clearing stuff out. I'm going to have a clearer. There's a whole box of them still there.
Okay, so there are some books. Would you like to read a poem?
Sure. I'll read it from this book because you can't really see.
I can't see it.
No, it's called All My Braided Colours. And the reason I haven't produced another book is because this was edited by the late J. Ramsey.
Yeah.
And he was a friend of Philip's.
Mm-hmm.
And I met him through Philip. And I don't feel comfortable letting anybody else edit. So he edited this, and he took this one. I'm going to read this. I've never read this at any reading before. I've always read things that are a bit more, and this I think this is quite a nice one and says a little bit more about my surroundings.
Wonderful.
Here as well. It's called The Plums Are Growing Thick. The plums.
Yeah.
The plums are growing thick. The trees are sagging beneath the weight, and green, oh green grows this glen, oh. The moor is vast and flat. The silent snags on the straight road, and the stones, oh the stones, they sing, oh hoo, oh. The rose is opening her face. Her smile is shining brighter. But the clouds, oh the clouds are glowering down, oh hoo, oh. The war is a raging fire, the drought lays waste the forest, and the child, oh the child cries a dreadful song, oh ho van hoo, oh. The governments lie sleeping, the soldiers march on through, oh. And this day is the last, where we will laugh, oh hoo, oh. The last notes drift down the bank, a chord crashes through the bushes, oh. And the child sings a dreadful song of the plums that once fell off a tree, oh. Once there were plums on a tree.
It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
I've never read that out before, not ever. And it's given to being read out. The oh hoo, oh ho, van hoo is very much part of Gaelic song. You'll find it where there is not where there's no room for words. It's just a refrain. I haven't been in this book for ages. Can I read this one? I read this one. This is NicNeill, which doesn't quite. Homesickness cannot be the translation of it, because NicNeill is when you're really, you're so homesick that your brain is coming out, But this is about a place called the Creed, and it's a wooded area in Stornoway with a river running through, and it's called My Friend. And this is when I first found my first animal. Oh, sorry, I'm losing the words.
Don't worry.
Not talisman. My animal guide. My first animal guide. So it's my friend the heron used to stand in the creed. I would walk there on quiet days and we would talk. He was a reserved sort, my friend, but good through and through. I joined him one day and stood on one leg. I fell down, but he didn't shake his head or show his disapproval. That's my friend. And so the heron became my animal spirit.
That's so beautiful. You know, to assume the posture fall and not be judged. Wow, that is quite magical. Somebody wants to know where, if maybe if you can say where your poetry book can be acquired. I don't know if people can contact you and you send them.
Email me and I'll send you one.
Your email is Susie IS. I'm going to put in your email address. Is that okay?
Yes, that's fine.
SIUSAIDHNICNEILL. So it's SIUSAIDHNICNEILL at what? I've forgotten.
At gmail.com, but there's a dot between the Susie and the NicNeill.
Ah, okay.
And there's poems in there as well, because I was involved in the repatriation of the ghost dance shirt to the Lakota Sioux on the Rosebud Reservation. And I had written a poem for them, and they had it translated into Lakota, and we had it Gaelic, Lakota, and English. And one of my friends went over for the burial of the shirt. They buried it. The fight we had getting it out of Glasgow Museum. And it went back, and the poem was read out in Gaelic, English, and Lakota. And I don't think I've ever been so proud of anything.
I can see how you think you're not pretty good, Susie. I mean, it's just it's a wonderful. I mean, the fact that you've had your poetry translated, you know, and read, and amazing, absolutely. So you're going to have a number of people wanting to buy poetry, so expect some emails. And Philip has put in your email address, and somebody on all of the OBOD channels, it's been put on. I just see here, so he must be watching as well. So that's wonderful.
I was telling you before. I've got a compilation together for a new book, and it's called "Eaten by Cats." And when I'm old and morbidly fat, I'll die in my bed and get eaten by cats. And that is the basis of that. That's going to go.
A wonderful goal. Actually, speaking of when you go and eaten by cats, speaking of ancestors, how do you see yourself as a future ancestor, or how do you assume responsibility, you know, for our descendants going forward?
When I was in Galway, I was in Galway city itself, and I was in Eyre Square. I don't know if do you know Galway?
I love Galway. I lived there, yeah.
I got Eyre Square, and there was this old lady there who used to read palms, and I'm having some of that. Thank you very much. And she told me that she saw a lot of children, but none of them were mine nor ever would be, but they were all mine. And I see, as a teacher, when I was serving behind the bar at a charity function, and this woman came up to me and said, "Hello, Miss NicNeill, can I have 3 large gin and tonics, Maseta Hala?" And this was one of my children, you know. And she was from Tyree, and this was in Skye. And I thought, and she's going to the college here now and doing Gaelic. And
she said, please. That was good.
And she said, please. Maseta Hala. Because I don't have any children, I can only see me as an ancestor through the teaching.
Yeah.
I think through the teaching. I am auntie to lots of people, small ones and big ones, you know, from Brisbane and Adelaide to Aberdeen. And again through friendships. And through things left behind as an ancestor. How do I see myself as an ancestor? I will be a tree.
Yeah.
I will be a tree, yeah. I'm fairly, yeah, I feel that quite a lot, you know. I'm trying to create a green burial site here on Skye. And I'm going to be a hawthorn tree. When I go, I'll feed a hawthorn tree and I'll become that hawthorn tree. And that hawthorn tree will sprout beautiful white flowers and will feed the bees and will drop its berries and grow more hawthorn trees. That's what I'm going to do.
Oh, it's absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And it's wonderful that you've got your green burial, or have you got it? Is it?
Not yet. The planning department don't think we should have it. We actually, it's great. The plot of land we've got is beautiful. I mean, it is peaked, but it's very, very deep.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll be able to grow trees in a grove there. And we've got a little viewing platform of an old stub of a tree, which looks just across the Sound of Slate Malik.
Wow.
It's very beautiful.
So are you having difficulty with the authorities to get it going, or?
Yeah. Wait until the burial ground in Kilmuir is completely filled up. Then they'll be asking us to do it.
We'll be very happy.
We want to start, making willow coffins as well, and felted leaves as a job, down this end of the island. So we're constantly doing that.
It's wonderful. My husband Howard, he passed 6 years ago, just a few weeks ago, 6 years ago, and he we had a willow coffin for him. And it's interesting, when I was he was dying for 6 weeks before at home, and he published 2 books, poetry books, in his last 6 weeks. But he when I was Googling, where am I going to get a willow coffin, and I found a website, and on the website were photographs, and one was of our daughter with a willow bow and arrow, just a shot of her back where she was firing an arrow into a river. And a few years previously, or maybe a year or 2 previously, he and my daughter Quaylen had been harvesting willow for a woman who grows willow for that coffin maker. And I wondered, did some of those willows, did that go into his coffin? And it was just absolutely magical to recognize our daughter on this website. I was just blown. And I told him, just blown away by this.
Oh, Yeah, I mean, we'll be growing our own willows as well in the wet part of it, down at the bottom near so it will give extra drainage as well. But I had wanted, you see, when I was teaching, I was planning on getting a cardboard coffin and getting the kids to decorate it for me. And I said this, I was speaking to Ferky, the funeral director down there. He said, "Oh, don't get a cardboard coffin. We had a terrible, terrible day with a cardboard coffin on Skye. We were walking along holding the coffin and the bottom
came out.
It was pouring with rain. So cardboard coffins on Skye are a no-no.
It's interesting. I had thought about cardboard coffin years ago until I discovered willow. And of course, I mean, Mark Rhodes Taylor says willow is a sustainable resource which will keep growing back from cuttings, and it's great for weaving and making things. Absolutely, Mark. I keep trimming my willow, and then you just stick it in the ground, and it just pops up. It's just what a resilient tree, and a wonderful tree to emulate. Or when you think about how adaptive it is, that nothing stops it.
Nothing stops it. Hazel's the same, I have to say. Nothing stops hazel.
It's absolutely
grow on the moon.
I know. I have lots of sycamore saplings, and I have to say, when I pick them up, it's like, yes, but you have to make room for your other plant brothers and sisters, and that is really, really important. You know that they can't be everywhere. They're quite greedy, and I mean, they pop up, and when you think of all the seed they produce, but
and they start pushing everything else out.
That's right. Yeah. So it's kind of, I allow you can have a little bit, but not all of it. But you know what? You can coppice sycamore.
Can you?
Yes, the one that I coppice, and so I don't feel so bad, because even if you cut it down, eventually a shoot will grow up from the middle or from around it, so that you can harvest it and say, okay, welcome sycamore, you're going to be coppiced. You're still alive. But someone says, I love how this goes from deep wisdom to hilarious laughter in 1 minute. Okay. Yes, such is the nature of these conversations. And John King, we've got rhododendrons. I bet you it's the ponticum, the one that grows absolutely crazy and pushes out other things. We have a same problem here in Ireland as well with rhododendrons. Certain rhododendrons.
I mean, I cannot say that I hate rhododendrons, because I love all living things. I love all non-living things, because somewhere along the line a living thing has either gone into it or a living thing has made it. But rhododendrons should be in the Himalayas. They shouldn't be here.
They challenge your compassion.
They do challenge your compassion.
Yeah, and they're beautiful flowers, you see. It's just, again,
very beautiful when they're out.
So I was going to, often I ask this question, what's your greatest achievement? Or what are you most proud of? But you told me you're not good at anything, or you've never focused on anything, and yet you've published books. You're an artist. What would you say is your greatest achievement? Your what do you call it? Your modesty doesn't suit you. So just put that aside for a minute. You can pick it up on the way out.
I think that the ghost dancer, and having that poem read at the burial of the ghost dancer in 3 languages, in Gaelic, on a Lakota reservation. I think that was, my greatest achievement. That, and the fact that I got an A from my tutor in Canada, and according to the student guides who help you, and she said, if he doesn't give you an A, I'll eat this. And he gave me an A, and she was absolutely surprised, because nobody had ever had an A from him before. And I was very, very proud of that. But then I was 47 and everybody else in my class was 20.
Oh, wonderful,
And
wonderful.
I don't think anybody should should go to university until they're at least 25. Go out and have a good time. Enjoy the world. See it. Then settle down and study. Because I studied, you know, when I went back to university and I did my honours and then postgrad, I was much more capable of doing it.
Absolutely. I want you.
Enjoyed it.
You enjoyed it more. I was 17 when I went to college first. Didn't open a book. I went to 25 again as a mature student. No comparison. And then again to do my master's at 32. I agree with you. Much more mature. And that's what my kids want to do. They want to go when they're in their, you know, at least 23, 24, 25. So
no memory. The first time I went, I did drama. I have no memory at all of my second year. I don't know what was going on. Well, I do know what was going on, but it certainly wasn't studying. And I remember racing my friend to give blood and then fill up with strong liquor, you know, because you were so, and you know, I don't need to do that anymore. I need to just settle down and be calm and get on with it, and enjoy it.
indeed.
Yeah.
There's a question from Gail from I think she's in the US. Which Lakota reservation was this?
It was Rosebud.
Where's that?
Well, I wasn't there, but it's in South Dakota. There were Lakota and Ogallala Sioux.
Okay.
But it was the Rosebud Reservation, which is, I think, I may be wrong, but I think it's to the east of Rapid City.
Okay. I hope that makes sense to you, Gail. Okay. So what's the most reckless thing you've done? Forget your second year, or have you done other reckless?
Pretty reckless. Yes, I've done some fairly reckless things. I did try to get on a parachute jump until somebody told them that I had asthma. And they said, you can't come up if you got. I said, it's fine. It's under control. No, when you get up that high, you'll get hypoxia. And I was ready for going, you know. But I think one of the most reckless things, I was adopted and I kept on trying to find my birth mother. And that might not sound reckless, but I was getting nowhere, and she had gone to South Africa and she must have come back and blah, blah. And my friend Coralie, who also had a willow coffin, she and I went to Inverness to have a girls' weekend, spa weekend. And just as I was leaving, this woman who I had booked to try and find my mother about 3 weeks before, and I had been trying since I was 18, you know, so this was about 15 years ago. This woman phoned up and said, I found her. And I said, well, I don't want to know. I'm going to give me the number, and I'm going to give it to my friend Jack, who was a minister at the Church of Scotland, and he's going to make contact. And if it sounds like, you know, she doesn't want to know, that's fine. I'll just walk away. And then he phoned me up in this hotel, and Coralie had brought her Skye Terrier with her to be groomed. And I managed to, Jack said, yeah, phone her, speak to her, don't get too upset at things she might say, and blah, blah, that was fine. And then I put the phone down after about an hour, came out, saw Coralie, and she said, is she barking? And I said, no, she seems quite sane, actually. Stupid woman. I mean the dog. So yeah, I did find her. You know, we didn't get on terribly well. I think we were too alike in many ways. But I did find my half sister as well.
Ah.
5 years after, because I said I would try. She told me that I had a half sister who was 5 years younger than me, and I said I would try and find. No. We'll not go there again. And Felicity found us, so it was great. I've got a half sister and a stepbrother who I love dearly, and he's in Brisbane, and it's their family that.
Oh.
I'm their Auntie Susie. So.
Oh, that's absolutely beautiful.
Or AS. Known as AS.
Say that again.
AS. AS. Auntie Susie. A
Oh,
and
okay. Yes.
you just
what are you grateful for in your life?
Everything. I'm grateful. I go out here every morning. I try and do it at high tide. I've got a little rock, a gill that goes out into the sea, and I stand there in the morning and I do my Druid's prayer. And this morning, because it was so warm as well, I went out and I thanked the Spirit for my health and for my tree and for the sea and for my land and for my friends and for my cats and for my friends and for everything, absolutely everything. Because I've been dangerously close to not being here.
Okay.
And now I'm fine. And I'm here. So I'm grateful to be here. Yeah.
That's absolutely, and you have a very a full life. You know, Michelangelo said when he was 87, "Ancora imparo," I'm still learning. And I remember my mother, who's 85 and going really strong and flourishing in this pandemic, but she used to say, even in her 30s, I'm too old to be learning new things. You need to change. At my age of life, I shouldn't have to be learning something new. And that was her chant when she was younger. And she's done a lot of things.
Yes.
And I just love because then I was brought up that when, you know, you can't teach old dogs new tricks, and you'll reach a certain age and then you'll, I don't know, withdraw and retire. And I go, not at all. I can't. Like the world is continuing to open up. And I find it's more, although I traveled in my early 20s, but I feel so many things are opening up now. And and I think that's wonderful that we keep learning until right up to the very end.
I'm quite happy not to learn too much technology. I have to, you know, I mean, it's great that we're here and being able to do this and being able to talk with people across in America and even as far as Art American. And it's wonderful. But I had to get a new phone because I don't get phone signal here. So I needed to get Wi-Fi calling, blah, blah, blah. And it sits by the computer if I need to get a one-time password. And that's it. I'm not interested in what I can do with the mobile phone. You know, how many things I can scan with the mobile phone. I just don't care. And technology and AI, it doesn't frighten me. It doesn't frighten me. There's one piece of artwork that I've got that was waiting for an exhibition in Inverness. And of course, this came along. and I'll describe it to you if I can, because I haven't seen it since before lockdown. But what I did was I took two big embroidery hoops and I cut one of the, you know, these ironing board covers that are shiny.
Yes.
And I cut them out in circles. And on one, I drew a fetus. And then I sewed it into the brain of the fetus, lots of bits of components from computers. And through its little umbilical cord, it had a wee USB port. And that went out and along through to the next one, which had a man's head. And he just had a strange number on his forehead and a USB port in his neck, and it joined together. And it's called normality.
Wow.
And it kind of frightens me. And I made it. There was quite a lot of embroidery work on it. But artificial intelligence shouldn't be frightening if human intelligence is still in control.
I think that's the key, isn't it?
I think so. I think so. And, you know, technology should only be a tool, and it should only be there to use if you want to use it. Now, as an elderly person living in South Skye without a car because I've got epilepsy, so I can't drive until August, and
fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. But I can't do banking without having a mobile phone, you know. And it's just ridiculous. And now, you know, I can't move I can't access my money. I've got to go 50 miles up the road to go to a branch because they've shut all the branches. So, you know, to me, technology, I'll use it for when I need it. And I'll learn what I need to learn. And no more. No more.
I think the important is that you use it rather than it use you. I remember I first opened a bank account in 1978 when I started nursing training, and in those days it was direct. You'd learnt on the hoof, and then it wasn't through the university. It was working, and then they released you for study. So we were paid, and I was known. People knew me by my name. And there was always, you went into the bank and there was no credit, no ATMs in those days. But I went to withdraw money. And even if I was overdrawn, they knew that, well, every month she gets a salary. Or if I'd gone on holiday and extended, they would just say, no, just let you know that's what's in your account. No problem. And that went on for years. And I changed branches, same bank, but different branches. And now they don't want any personal contact. There is no customer service.
No, even on the phone, you know, they try and just give you numbers.
Oh,
I know that I'm not supposed to hate anything living or non-living, but I hate banks. I hate mobile phones. I hate mobile phone companies. But anyway, you know, you get through it. You get through it.
You do.
I hate scammers. I hate people who are so horrible that they scam other people. I think that's vicious. You know, the Druids for Justice thing that came up a couple of weeks ago, I think we were putting, and it's been taking me ages because I wanted to write a piece for that. Because, well, I knew that, you know, my friend across here, her husband is Afro-Caribbean, and she's from Skye. She has two lovely boys. Now, the 15-year-old and I could walk down a road in London, but he's got big hair and he'll be jogging along. He's a great kid. And he'll be the one that's stopped and searched by the police. This wee old woman is from the Woodstock generation. I'm the one that should be stopped.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
they don't get it. And, you know, there's so much injustice. I'm also a member of prison radio in Sacramento for Native American prisoners. Just as a supporter, not, you know, I don't do radio broadcasts or anything. But the injustice that you see in the prison systems across the world, I mean, it's not just in America or here or wherever, across the world, the justice systems are incomplete for the most part. They're very biased.
Mm.
They're very biased. It was a good thing that we saw this week with Derek Chauvin being found guilty, but it's, you know, it's a tiny, tiny piece of justice within a big wide world. So that, yes, that has been, it has been challenging my little grey cells for the past few weeks, which is why I haven't actually written it. I just keep thinking about it. So I will write.
Well, wonderful, because we're still gathering pieces to be able to put it up on the website. So it would be very, very welcome, Susie. It's okay. Do you have any regrets?
Yes, I feel guilty about my mum, not my birth mum, my actual mother. I do regret I couldn't look after her.
Okay.
And I lived quite far away, and I was the only, you know, the only child that she had, and she knew that I couldn't give her grandchildren. But you know, as she got older and lived in, she was in a nursing home, which she hated, and I went down as often as I could. But I had said to her, she had gone into hospital. I was there when she came out of the operation, and I gave her some food, and I said, look, I'll be back tomorrow. I've got to go to Skye for a party. It was a friend's anniversary party. And I drove back up to Skye, and that night she died.
Oh, okay.
So, yes, I do regret, you know, looking at things like that. You know, I feel guilt, and I felt I was burdened with guilt for a long time, and I've worked my way out of it and worked my way through to her. For her forgiveness as well, which I think is important. But then she would have forgiven me anything. If I chucked her off the fourth bridge, she would have forgiven me, you know. But I just, you know, that burden of guilt was quite debilitating at times. But you have to come out of it.
I think it's you know, that's such a message of hope that you were able to come out of it and work through it with her, or her being on the other side, and
Yes.
however you did it. And somebody says, Tina Teaspoon, it's not your fault, Susie. She loves you and is with you, no doubt about that. And I think though part of grief often can be, yeah, guilt can be there about not having done whatever you did do or not do, or should have said, all of those kind of things. And the fact that she did go and you weren't ready for that, you know, when you weren't there. I mean, yeah.
And part of me feels that, you know, I should have had her living with me, or I should have been living with her. And there is no way that I could have lived with her and looked after her. I couldn't lift her for a start. And I couldn't live in the box that she had built. I wouldn't have been able to do anything and to develop as a person. As she developed as a person, and she was allowed to develop as a person, probably because I was hardly ever there. Yeah.
I think one of the greatest gifts, as a parent, you can give your children is to allow them go on their own path and not have expectations that they mind you or whatever. And yet I would hate to die in a home. I would like to be able to die in my own home, but I don't know. There's no guarantee. That's what I would like,
I age-proofed my home, because before it was a hen stair up into a tiny room at the top.
Okay.
And with what my mother left me after she died, I put an extension higher up that's all on the one plane, so that especially if the sea decides to come in through this room, the bedroom's back there, and I've got a proper staircase. So it's age-proofed. And I've got my friend Callum, who's got my power of attorney already. Should I need to go into a home, this is the pillow that you use.
Okay. Yeah.
And I know he won't do it, because when my father was in the same nursing home as my mother with extreme dementia, Alzheimer's, I mean, he had forgotten how to walk, and ultimately he just forgot how to breathe. But he was so depressed as well. I just wanted to put him out of his misery. And at the same time, I couldn't.
Oh, yeah.
I couldn't take that life from him. And my mother kept wanting to die, and I couldn't help her along. And I felt bad about that, because there must be a way that we can allow people to transition, to move on with, away from the pain. I personally have no fear of death whatsoever. I'm really scared of pain.
Yeah.
I don't want to be in pain. I'm really scared of them. I'm a wuss when it comes to pain, But death is nothing at all.
Yeah, and I think fear of pain is a very valid fear. And luckily, I used to be a nurse, and I remember this is in the late 70s, early 80s, and pain management was really bad in those days. Everything had to be given IM into the muscle. So when somebody's wasting away, there was no muscle to give them, and then they were always worried about addiction. And it's revolutionized pain management. And we're like, when Howard was passing, he went through a phase where his pain was not being managed, and he was petrified. I remember holding his hand, and he was crying, and I was crying for 2 hours waiting to get proper care. And then met a specialist who said, this is how we do it. And he'd needed very little pain relief because it was managed so well. Yes. So I think pain is, because you become obsessed with it, because that's all you can, it takes you.
I always had, I do Reiki, and I help other people with pain, and I have helped myself when I had neuralgia. Yeah. Really sore. And I have helped myself with Reiki, but if it's something serious, it's not going to work. I don't feel confident enough in my own, in my own practice for it to work. But anyway, that's not going to happen, because by the time I'm 87, I will be having an exhibition down in the Tate Gallery in London. Yeah,
you are good. What do you call her? Georgia O'Keeffe. Do you know the artist?
I do. Well, not personally.
But I mean, she lost her sight at 70, and then she changed her medium. She became a sculptor, And I don't know, she lived till she was in her 90s. John Gielgud, the actor, he died at 96, and I think he was acting 3 days beforehand.
Yeah.
Isn't and I do Argentine tango, or I did pre-COVID. And the oldest guy in my class, well, he's now 101, but the oldest guy I've ever danced tango with is 100, was 100. And there was a woman in the class who was 93. And
No, I'm 86. That's where it's going. Old lady in Eyre Square, she told me.
oh, you're here till you're 86. I think I'm going to be here longer.
86, and that's fine. I'm quite happy with that. My birth mother was 72, but she smoked like a chimney.
Okay.
And had got lung cancer and went to her brain. So yeah, I don't think I'm going to be quite as long lived. And even my Shetland granny and my Gia grandpa, they were all mid-80s.
Okay.
It seems to be the sweet spot. So that's fun. I've got time enough. Tragalio, as they say. Tragalio.
Okay, in the meantime, so you have a long way to go. What concerns you about the modern world?
Everything. Well, certainly climate change, because I live so close to the sea. But what concerns me most, it's things like the war in Yemen, for example, which is completely unnecessary and is being backed by America and Britain selling arms to Saudi Arabia, who are then sending them on. You know, this sort of nasty little arms race thing going on, arms deals going on. That really concerns me. I think there are lots and lots and lots of people who are twigging on to the whole climate change thing, to zero waste, and to all the things that we can do to minimize our footprint on this earth. I get very distressed when I see forests being flattened to build palm oil plantations, you know. I look carefully at everything. I'm not having that. It's got palm oil in it, and try and soya and and then I get distressed on television when there's constant charities looking for donations and they're using emotional blackmail, and I just have to leave the room because I'm actually very good at making donations to charities, particular charities that I support. And then the rest of them come on and you can get a cuddly tiger. I don't want a cuddly tiger. I just don't want the tigers to be killed, you know. Spend your money on the tigers rather than on giving cuddly tigers. And I find that distressing. There's so much in the world to be distressed by, and there's so much in the world to be thankful for.
Oh, yeah.
I think, you know, they're saying at a meeting today that this next 10 years is the absolute critical time in climate change. No, I thought the last 10 years was the critical time, you know. And I go along my little shore. It's about half a mile. And when I go for a walk, I take my litter picker and I pick up all the bits of plastic and the plastic that we get here has come from the bins, you know. Our bins have been blown down in the wind and all the garbage has just been thrown around by wind, because we do get quite high winds. So it's not deliberate. People just chucking stuff away. It's just the wind. But I go along and just fill up bags full of rubbish and plastic. And I fill these squash bottles filled with little bits of plastic, little tiny bits of plastic and aluminium that would otherwise go to landfill. And I've got dozens of these bottles, and I'm going to make something with them. I don't know what I'm going to make with them, but I'm going to make something. Maybe planters or something. And all that plastic that can't be recycled is going to be reused in some way. And I do lots of upcycling and, aprons made out of old jeans. I've got a few of those. I like those.
And would you tell our viewers what you made from your Druid robe?
Oh, yes. My Druid robe unfortunately went to make scrubs and masks for the old folks' care home.
What a generous. How generous. Go on, show us.
I can make another Druid robe, but this was my bardic.
Put it back towards you, away from the screen. Yeah. Oh, now we can see it. Lovely.
It's just, this took me about 20 years. It shouldn't have, really. It didn't need to. But when I made the tabard, at last I found a home for it. It's all Celtic-y. You can't see it.
I think spirals. You've got your two.
Yes.
So this is all embroidery, yes?
It's all embroidery, yeah. All done by hand. And this is all just a Celtic thing and things. Celtic-y things.
Beautiful, beautiful.
I'll need to make another Druid robe, even although I never wore it. But if I come down to Glastonbury.
You'll be known as the naked Druid on Skye, or the Sky-clad. You could be Sky-clad on Skye.
Yeah.
That is beautiful. So what gives you hope then about the modern world?
What did I hope about the modern world? Gosh, I don't know. I always, as a child, hoped for peace. My father had been a prisoner of war and came back weighing 6 stone because he had been in two concentration camps. And I had hoped that nothing like that would ever happen to anybody again. And now we know it's happened to the Uyghur people in China. It's happening in Syria, in Kurdistan. The wars that are breaking out, these horrible, nasty little wars that are breaking out and being fed by the West. I had just hoped none of that would ever be here in my life. By the time I was 21, there'd be no nuclear missiles. Scotland is the only country in the world that's getting more nuclear missiles. We don't want them, but the British government, the government in England, is building up the number of nuclear warheads on the Clyde, which is why, of course, we want independence, because we can be nuclear-free, war-free, and probably do a lot more dancing and singing.
I'm all for dancing and singing.
Yeah, there's not a lot of that happening at the moment.
So, yeah. Well, let's hope so. I suppose it's kind of tapping into the goodwill of people, that hopefully some kind of reason, compassion, consciousness, people wake up and that it may prevail.
I have a thing, right, as a Reiki master, every night I do a meditation and I send distance Reiki to a list of people And at the end of it, I do a Reiki master thing, which I send to Yemen,
Lovely.
and looking for uh, helping to heal the hurts. And I thought one night, I was lying in my bed thinking about this, and I thought, if every Reiki master in the world, and now there's millions of them, if every single person in the world used prayer of some sort, and Reiki is only getting the universal consciousness, which
Mm-hmm.
is the prayer, you know, if we aimed it all in one spot at one time, would something marvelous happen? And time doesn't actually matter, because prayer and the universal consciousness and the spirit, time doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, you know. But if we all said 8 o'clock our time, we're all going to send a prayer for Yemen. And we try it. It's like Earth Day or Earth Hour. You know, we try these things, but we need everybody, everybody to do it, and to focus consciousness and focus the chi in one direction.
It's interesting you say that. I was reading, and I don't know how accurate it is, that during the Second World War, Big Ben chimed at 9. Well, I probably chimed at every hour, but 9 o'clock there was a minute silence for peace. And so all of Britain came together, you know, listening to the radio, bong, 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 whatever, or not St. Patrick, Big Ben, not Big Patrick, Big Ben, whatever he said at the clock, for peace.
Yeah.
And it was during the Nuremberg trial, some Nazi commander was being questioned, and he said, you British had one weapon, and that was Big Ben. That somehow the Germans believed that whatever that moment of 1 minute for peace at 9 o'clock every evening had some collective force that brought about the end of the war and the defeat of the Germans. Now, I read an account, I don't know how accurate that is, maybe somebody might have read the same, but I thought that was really, really interesting. And I mean, you're just saying that, you know, if you focus.
I think it is absolutely possible. My friend Pam, the artist here, her breast cancer metastasized, and she's been quite ill. And every evening I do a special little focus on her. And she went to get her scans done the other day, and I've been doing this now for about 3 months. And she said the tumors have shrunk.
Wow.
I'm not saying it's anything to do with me, but I know all her friends, because she's a Baptist and she goes to, you know, a Baptist church, and they are all praying for her as well. And they did a thing in America, a study, but it was a very small study. But they took 30 people with stage 2 cancer.
Okay.
They had this group of people pray for them every day at the same time. And they had another group that, you know, with stage 2 cancer who didn't get prayed for. And the ones who were being prayed for, all of them, there was 30 of them, I think 20 out of the 30, 28 of them, their tumors shrank. And this, I mean, they weren't named individuals. They were being prayed for as a group. And
Wow.
this was a scientist who was running this study. And I think if a study like that could be done on a much larger scale to show the power of universal consciousness, to show the power of chi being focused, I think we would have a wonderful weapon on our side for health, for peace, for orangutans. I love orangutans.
Yeah.
And I suppose that's what I hope for.
Well, maybe this is something you can initiate, or some of our viewers can do that. It would
Yes.
be a lovely thing to do that. I think that would be absolutely wonderful. I'm conscious, because you told me that you're in bed at 8 o'clock every night, and you're way past your bedtime. And I think you could go on another few hours, because you seem so animated.
8 o'clock is probably.
I know. You're trying to make me think that you're very pure and really good living. What will you not compromise on? Like, what's not negotiable for you?
Gosh. See, I compromise. I'm very good at compromising and negotiating things. I will not eat or use anything with palm oil in it.
Okay, good.
But I try to live my life as best I can, as in a limited, not in any way limited. I don't limit myself, but I try to limit my footprint. That's what I'm trying to say. I try to limit my footprint, even although I do want to go back to Brisbane, and that's a big footprint. But I do try to live my life as small as I can in those terms. But generally speaking, I can compromise pretty well. You know, if people say, oh no, we want to meet at 9 o'clock, and I said, but I go to my bed at 8 o'clock. And I said, well, okay, I'll come at 8:30 then.
Well, you certainly compromised for, and I know you're going to have a long lie-in in the morning, and I hope you sleep well.
Because I'm retired. I can stay up. I used to stay up till 7 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
In my partying days, in my Woodstock days. Many's a party has been held in this house that didn't stop for 3 days, you know. But now I just find I actually like my bed. I read in bed, you see.
Yes.
And I go to bed and I plump up all the pillows and I get the cats around me and I read my Kindle, and I'm as happy as a bug in a rug.
That's absolutely wonderful. Before we finish, what is your favorite festival in terms of the Wheel of the Year?
Oh, no, too difficult. The Wheel of the Year. I love Imbolc because I love Bridge, and I love that it's a festival of women and children and the lactation of the ewes. And I love Beltane because I know that, you know, that summer's coming and it's just so energizing. And I love Lunasa because I want to dance and we're harvesting things and everything's that mellow way. I think Samhain is my favorite because I really, on my own, I really have the most deep meditations at Samhain. I open the veil and I visit all my dearest departed ones, or they visit me, which is the thing, and they visit me, and I love it, and it's draining, it's exhausting, but I do love it. And then my birthday comes and we party.
Oh, brilliant. What? Because it's funny, most people, my guess, when I ask, they'll say Samhain is their favorite. On Skye, how is Samhain celebrated traditionally?
Well, traditionally there have always been bonfires for Samhain, not for Guy Fawkes.
Yeah. So yeah.
Traditionally, it was young people, not children, but young people who would go guising, and their dressing up would only be clothes that were 2 sizes too big, and men wearing women's clothes, and women wearing bonnets and things like that. And that was, and then they would do pranks. You would get up in the morning, and your gate would be on the roof, you know. Your front gate would be on your roof. But there would be lots of singing. You know, when you went guising, you had to sing. And there would be apples and bannocks. And the bannocks would be covered in treacle. It would be very messy, very, very messy. And quite fun, but dark fun. But now, you know, I mean, even since my childhood, it's been children that have been doing the guising. Still, when I was young, you had to sing. Now they come dressed in costumes that Mammy's bought in Tesco's, and they're, you know, one of the Avengers, and they just come and they hold a pumpkin, which I never saw in my life until I was about 53, I think, was the first pumpkin I ever saw. And a plastic pumpkin at that. And they just wait for sweeties to be put in it, candy, you know. And I said, well, you know, have you got a song? Have you got a joke, a poem? And it's my friends' little children, they always have a Gaelic song, because she teaches them that, you know, and they're coming guising. I told my children in school, you're not going trick-or-treating. We do not do trick-or-treating. You're going guising.
I love it. We did that. It was called out going out on the pookies. And you sang. There was so we did it as children, but you had to sing. You had to earn whatever you got.
And, you know, you would go with your lantern. My dad used to go and steal a turnip.
Yeah.
And it took about 3 days to cut. One thing about pumpkins, they're easier to cut the turnip, which I think in America are called ratabouga or something.
Well, I started in the last few years carving turnips again. Yes. And I found a way of doing it. With an apple corer, and then you can scoop it out. But it's interesting, a few years ago, myself and a few other druids, we went to Inishmore, the Aran Islands, for Féile na Buachaí, the festival of the Pookies at Samhain. And we were asked to do a Samhain ritual, which we did in a field that hadn't been done before. But on Inishmore, I don't know what they call it, as Gaeilge, but it's certainly guising. The people dress up in fancy dress, and this is adults and children.
Yes.
And you have to dress up in such a way that nobody knows who you are. And traditionally, I think it would be, well, we won't know if you're from this world or the other world. And they spend 2 hours in the pub, or 3 hours early on in the evening, drinking in silence. And they have straws through their masks. And the person who cannot be recognized gets a prize. And there was the year we were there was one guy had 3 different costumes, because this was taken so seriously. And then there was a Ceilidh, and it was a silent Ceilidh, so people were dancing in costume. Now, they said, I was listening to a woman giving a talk on customs in Inishmore, and she said there are 4 people with brown eyes on Inishmore, so they can be recognized easily, but the blue-eyed ones can't. But this is adults, and usually their costume had some kind of a theme. It might be a protest, like water charges, or it could be, you know, you're talking plastic. Yes. And they have it to that theme, but absolutely fascinating. And that's a whole new thing.
Yeah, and it's died out so much. We would have a Samhain party, you know, Kaylee, for the adults after one for the children. But the children's one all had to do with sweeties.
I know.
Candy. And it just turned me off, quite frankly. And I just thought, I'll stay in and light a candle. That's what I'll do. It'll be fine. You know, and, you know, I can only go as Clint Eastwood, as the man from A Fistful of Dollars, so many years, because I had a hat and I had a poncho and put stubble and a moustache on and a cigar.
Oh, that's wonderful. Here, people don't come trick-or-treating because I live up a dark driveway and I have no lighting, apart from in my windows. And then people think I'm a witch, which I'm not. So nobody comes. It's only once in all my 23 years here has somebody come. Well, and then because it's rural, that we don't do it. Usually it's kind of housing estates where kids can go safely along the street. So we've done it.
Our houses are very separate. And the nearest children are about half a mile away. And nobody came last year because of COVID. Mm-hmm. And I always get the sweeties in, but I always get a big bag of tangerines in as well. Yeah. And my tangerine first. And then they say, it's all over good. And then, you know, have to give them something sweet and sugary. And in the hope that I'm not their teacher the next day.
Dealing with the fallout. Susie, it has been such a joy talking to you. And there's lots of comments, and we're going to look at these afterwards, myself and Susie. And it's just been an absolute joy talking to you. And I really enjoyed these conversations because my guests have been amazing, and I knew this was going to be wonderful. So I'm not disappointed, and I doubt if any of you are. And so I'm just going to, you stay where you are, Susie. I'm just going to say goodbye, and then we'll come back and have just a little chat then. So thank you so much for joining us this evening. It's been absolutely wonderful. So I look forward to seeing you next week, and happy Earth Day to all of you. And yeah, and then that'll be just before next week, another guest, and then that'll just before our Bealtaine ceremony online. So slán go fóill agus bí slán, or bígí slán.